Wake up when your body is ready. No alarm, no notifications, no boss waiting on a reply. For 99% of human history, this wasn't a hypothetical. This was every single morning for roughly 300,000 years. So what did you actually do with that freedom? Most people assume the answer is simple. Survive, forage. Exhausting, grinding, desperate. That picture is wrong. And the truth is stranger and more comfortable than almost anyone expects. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee traveled into the Kalahari Desert to live alongside the Kung people. Often called, he wanted to answer one question. How hard do hunter-gatherers actually have to work to survive? After hours of gathering, cooking, tool repair, everything, the number he came back with stunned the academic world. Around 15 hours a week. Less than 2 hours a day spent acquiring food and resources to live. Compare that to anyone's week. A 15-hour work week sounds like science fiction. For people living the way humans lived for most of our existence, it was just Tuesday. The single study sparked a new idea in anthropology. The economist and anthropologist Marshall Sahlins picked it up and ran further with it. In a famous essay called The Original Affluent Society, his argument was blunt. Hunter-gatherers weren't poor. They were affluent in the truest sense of the word. Not because they had more stuff, because they wanted less and got it easily. Affluence, down to its root, just means having your needs met without struggle. By that definition, your ancestors, so if they weren't spending all day surviving, what were they actually doing with the other 16 waking hours? This is where it gets interesting. Decades later, a modern anthropologist named James Suzman spent years living with the Kung and other foraging communities, and wrote about it in his book Affluence Without Abundance. He found the same pattern Lee had documented, and filled in the texture around it. Mornings often started slow. People talked, they told stories, the kind passed down for generations, encoding real survival knowledge inside entertainment without guilt because rest wasn't something you had to earn. Adults played the way we now think only children are allowed to. Separate, a more recent study on the Hadza people of Tanzania, led by anthropologist Frank Marlowe, found something almost identical. The Hadza are one of the last groups on Earth still living a primarily hunter-gatherer lifestyle today. In 2026, right now, in the same river valleys their ancestors used. Marlowe's research showed adult Hadzas spending the bulk of their day on rest, socializing, and craft work. Sharpening arrows, weaving baskets, sitting together doing close to nothing at all on purpose. Doing nothing on purpose. Let that sink in for a second. When was the last time you did that without checking a phone? Let's go back further, picture a different scene now. At the Olduvai Gorge in what is now Tanzania, roughly 1.8 million years ago. This is one of the most studied archaeological sites on the planet, where paleoanthropologists led by the Leakey family uncovered some of the earliest stone tools ever found, called Olduvai tools. Simple sharp-edged stones used to cut meat and crack bone for marrow. Picture a small group, maybe 15 people, settled near a shallow lake at the edge of a grassy plain. The morning sun is still low. A few people are walking the tree line. Not in a panic, but with the same casual attentiveness you might use checking traffic before crossing a street. Others, near a cooling fire pit, someone is napping a stone. Striking flake after flake off a rock core, the sound sharp and rhythmic. Children are nearby, mimicking the motion with smaller stones. Learning a skill that will matter in 10 years. Nobody is rushing. There is no clock to beat. The work that needs doing today is give or take 2 hours of it. The rest of the day belongs to them. This image rarely makes it into textbooks. Textbooks prefer the dramatic version. Mammoth hunts, constant danger, a desperate war against nature. That version sells. It also happens to be mostly wrong, or at least wildly incomplete for huge stretches of prehistory in resource-rich environments. Here's the counterintuitive twist. The grinding, non-stop, sunrise to exhaustion workday wasn't something ancient humans escaped through progress. It was something we invented. Agriculture, starting roughly 12,000 years ago, is usually taught as humanity's great leap forward. And in some ways it was. It allowed permanent settlements, larger populations, eventually cities, writing, civilization as we measure it. But multiple researchers, including biologist Jared Diamond in his essay The Worst Mistake in the History of the Human Race, have argued that for the individual person living through it, farming made daily life dramatically harder. Skeletal remains from early agricultural societies show shorter stature, worse nutrition, more disease, and significantly more hours of daily labor compared to the foragers who came before them. You traded leisure for surplus, you traded a 15-hour week for a job that never really ends. Because crops don't take days off, and storage created the very first reason to work more than you needed to survive. The fear of not having enough later. That fear never really left, it just changed shape. It used to be a granary, now it's a savings account, a deadline, a notification badge. Think about your actual week right now. Somewhere around 40 hours of paid work. Add the commute, add email after dinner, add the mental tab running in the background about everything still undone. Stack it up against 15 hours in the Kalahari, or 2 hours a day at Olduvai Gorge. And the comparison stops being a fun fact, it starts being a little uncomfortable. We built unimaginable technology, medicine, and abundance. Somewhere in that trade, we also built a kind of busyness your ancestors would have found bizarre, maybe even a little sad. It raises an honest question, not a guilt trip, just an honest question. If the goal of all this progress was eventually more free time, more rest, more time spent talking and resting and doing nothing on purpose with people you care about, are you actually closer to that goal than the people sitting around a fire 1.8 million years ago, or further from it? You woke up this morning to an alarm, a schedule, a list. They woke up to a sun, a campfire, and roughly 2 hours of work standing between them and the rest of their day. Maybe the real ancient mystery isn't how they survived with so little. Maybe it's how we ended up with so much and somehow still have so little time.